Hey, so we all know Junji Ito's amazing, right? We all know he's a complete master of horror. And with Adult Swim's Uzumaki coming out whenever it comes out, maybe this year, we think, I want to add something to the discussion around this guy. Because as much as I love Uzumaki, Kirie is very much your standard Junji Ito protagonist. And what I mean by that is pretty much every issue is just she wanders somewhere in the town and something horrible happens and she watches it and then it just happens to her again. And that's actually fine, you know. 9 times out of 10, Junji and main characters don't need to be anything more than someone who is afflicted by some kind of unknown, horrible, cosmic disease or whatever, and then horror just happens to them, or they watch that happen to someone. And sometimes it's both. Spoilers for the Enigma of Amigara Fault, but the main character Owaki spends most of the story just watching other people go mad and put themselves in holes, and then at the end, he goes mad and puts himself in a hole. However, in Lovesickness, the main character Ryusuke, no, not that one, is a legitimately proactive and interesting character. Instead of just being a witness to the horror, he is personally invested and actively goes out of his way to try and hinder it. So today I'm going to be going over Lovesickness by Junji Ito and talking about why Ryusuke is his greatest protagonist. I'm going to be spoiling the entire story, so if you don't have it or you haven't read it, go and read it first. It's well worth you getting it. The anthology it's part of is tail-ended with a story all about poop. I also want to put a quick content warning here because this is a very graphic story, so if you would not like to see anything revolving around harm to others, harm to yourself, harm to unborn children, or relationships that become abusive, I would click off of the video. So I'm sorry to my incredibly massive audience of people who expect me to talk about history content, but today I'm going to be talking about Lovesickness. Let's go. Lovesickness opens on a girl in school uniform standing at a foggy crossroads. She asks a stranger who walks past if he can tell her fortune. We learn from their conversation that in this town there is a tradition to ask the first stranger you see at the crossroads if they can tell your future. The girl then asks about her love life, and the man says as long as she takes the initiative, things will work out fine for her. We then cut over to a train and meet our main character Ryusuke, who is sat with his mother. We learn that they are moving back into this town after a period of not living there for some time because of Ryusuke's father's work. Ryusuke comments on how the town has always been very foggy, and neurons fire off in my brain because I like Silent Hill, and it's just like that. So we meet Ryusuke's dad and find out that he's the guy who gave the fortune right at the start of the story. Ryusuke gets visibly uncomfortable when he mentions the growing popularity of fortune-telling at the crossroads. The story jumps forward and we get to see Ryusuke's first day back at school. It's pretty awkward for him because everyone thinks he's really attractive and hits him with the "hey, do you remember me?" and he doesn't remember anyone. Apart from this one girl Midori, who is his childhood crush, so he naturally gravitates towards her. So later on, Ryusuke and Midori are hanging out and Ryusuke gets introduced to Midori's friend Reishi. Reishi is a shipper. She says Midori and Ryusuke are both popular, so they should be together. Ryusuke's been here for one day. The girls get talking about crossroad fortunes, and Midori says she doesn't believe in any of that kind of stuff. Reishi, on the other hand, is very into it. Ryusuke just ominously mutters about how crossroad fortunes are bad, and then wanders off. We see him later at his house, hitting the lo-fi beats to study to pose, and thinking to himself about how unnerving crossroad fortunes are. Later that night, we see a young girl stood out at the crossroads. A shadowy figure approaches her, and she asks if her love life is going to work out. When the girl looks up to look at the figure, we get this amazing one-page spread. The first time I saw it, I was like,
yeah, baby.
This is the boy in black. He is the primary monster of Lovesickness. He looks a lot like the main character Ryusuke, the only difference being he has his ears pierced, and he has 2003 Ninja Turtle eyes. The boy in black is a massive hater, and he tells this girl that she will never have a love life. The next morning, her body is found in a pool of blood. She has cut her own throat with a box cutter. So rumours start going around, and it turns out this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. In fact, around 10 years ago, another woman took her own life after receiving a bad crossroads fortune. Ryusuke is massively tweaking out about this. And it's here we learn why Ryusuke really does not like crossroad fortunes. It's because when he was a child, a very mentally unwell woman approached him and asked for a crossroad fortune. She was carrying the child of a man that was already married and wanted reassurance that things would work out for her. Ryusuke, being a literal child who did not know how to process this, effectively just told her things weren't going to work and then ran away. This led to the woman killing in Minecraft, and the same fate also fell on her child. And as if he wasn't feeling bad enough already, he finds out now that that woman was Midori's aunt, her favourite aunt who she lived with. Ryusuke runs off and gets comforted by Reishi, but he just pushes her away. So, in an act of kindness, Reishi goes out to the crossroads to ask if things are going to get better between Midori and Ryusuke. She says that they're dating, but he's being very cold to her, so what's going to happen? The boy in black just tells her to focus on her own love life. Reishi then goes back to talk to Midori, and it's here we see that not only are more and more people aware of the boy in black, he's being called the intersection's pretty boy, but his words have a seemingly hypnotic effect. So powerful, in fact, are the effects of his words, that Reishi has basically had a complete change of character. She now no longer really cares what Midori thinks and is actively trying to pursue a relationship with Ryusuke, who she claims she has liked since he transferred. So Reishi is a huge simp for Ryusuke. She shows up at his house every day, she's like withering away, you can see her getting thinner, she's just completely obsessed, but he's a Sigma, so he just screams at her. That's so stupid. But after this incident, he does go and apologize to Reishi. He just can't be with anyone right now, and he doesn't like her that way. You know, normal and very fair reasons. So, naturally, she commits box cutter. Ryusuke later finds out that Reishi is actually the fifth in a string of incidents, and he's getting tied up in it all because he was there when this happened. But stop the horror music. Because this is where Ryusuke decides, I'm not going to be a generic horror movie protagonist, I'm not just going to sit around and wait for things to happen, I'm going to actually do something. So Ryusuke immediately knows that the boy in black is behind all of this, and instead of just rushing off blindly, he makes a note on a map of all 5 incident locations and then draws a circle around it to get an idea as to where this guy is operating. It's interesting to note that all of the incidents are happening around where the first incident happened 10 years ago. And not only does he set out to catch the guy, he also goes around giving everyone good fortunes, actively trying to counteract the negative energy of the boy in black. Even when stuff gets really spoopy and he starts seeing the blood-drenched ghosts of past victims of the boy in black, he's afraid, but he keeps giving them good fortunes in hopes that it will put their spirits to rest. When he finds the ghost of the woman from 10 years ago, he asks for forgiveness instead of just running away like he did last time. He also saves Midori from the boy in black here. Like, he's just being very heroic. And that's the end of chapter 1, which is the longest chapter. As an introduction, this is brilliant. It's got all the Junji Ito classics: Haunted Town, Eldritch Entity, gore, blood, romance, I guess. But it's also very refreshing. Ryusuke is unlike any other protagonist. He doesn't just suffer through it. He actively tries to understand what is happening and fights against it, not just by trying to track down and deal with the monster, but also by actively doing things that are the opposite of the monster to keep other people safe. He is a very heroic protagonist for a genre that isn't really known for those. I hope by now you're seeing why he's the GOAT, but if you're not, fine, let's move on to chapter 2, The Troubled Woman. This chapter's pretty short, but it does a really good job of establishing Ryusuke as a character that can grow, because the entire point of the chapter is he has to confront the biggest mistake of his life and try and do better in a similar situation. So immediately we get some exposition. It's been 2 months since chapter 1 and one more victim has been claimed. At this point, Ryusuke is like Batman. He spends all of his time out on the streets. He spends sleepless nights trying to track down this guy and protect people from him. And when he's doing the rounds one day, he goes with Midori to visit the grave of her aunt, the same one he gave that bad fortune to, leading to her becoming the first victim of the crossroads. It's important to note here that he doesn't just wander in and everything's fine. He's still having problems with Midori. He still hasn't told her it was him who led to that incident, and he doesn't want to go to the grave, but he rationalizes to himself that he has to at least once. When the two are praying at the grave, an older woman approaches them and asks if they can hear her troubles. She has the exact same problems that Midori's aunt was having, the forbidden love and the pregnancy with the married man, and Ryusuke just can't handle this. He runs away, believing the woman to be possessed. But Midori, seeing some of her aunt in this person, listens to her problems. However, when she brings her home and the woman just refuses to leave her alone, she eventually concludes this woman has nothing but problems. Whenever you give her a solution, she just ignores it and comes up with something else. And I think we've all met someone like this, so this chapter just really pissed me off. Things quickly get disturbing when Midori's dad tells the woman she needs to go home. It's the early hours of the morning at this point, the family's just had enough of her, and she decides to violently terminate her own pregnancy by bashing her stomach with a plant pot. Smash cut to the next day, and the number of box cutter incidents has gone up to 7. Ryusuke is out doing the rounds as he always does, but now there's girls out there with him. You see, the boy in black is an eldritch monster who leads people to do horrible things, but he's very cute. He has pretty privilege, so there are girls trying to find his location so they can track him down just to look at him. He chases after them to try and prevent them from doing this very stupid thing, but is apprehended by the insane woman. He doesn't run away this time. He does try and talk to her. He says she should go to a temple if she wants to pray for something. He's dismissive, but in a helpful way. But there's just no getting through to her, and eventually he decides he's just gonna walk home. But when he gets home, she's in his room. Miss, this is a child. This is a crime, but she just yaps about her problems until the early AM and then leaves. She comes back every day after this, and when his family locks the door, she just starts climbing in his window. This panel's really funny, but she just starts climbing in his window. So in addition to being this vigilante night stalker, Ryusuke is now an on-call therapist for this woman, and he starts trying to give her legitimately good advice. He's like, hey, get out of this toxic relationship, stop obsessing over things that cause problems for you, like, don't you have any fun hobbies? Isn't there anything going on in your life? And the woman kicks off at him every time, and then just comes back. This is another really funny panel. And just like last time, things really quickly escalate from disturbing in a woman in a child's room kind of way into a this woman is a murderer way. She kills the only son of the guy she's seeing and then trauma dumps to this kid about it. Ryusuke is just horrified by this, and the next day she comes in kind of ignoring the whole murder thing and talking about how she wants to get tattoos. The murder is all over the news and the woman stops showing up. Ryusuke is traumatized, but hey, he's got more time to wander the streets now, I guess. So he's out with Midori one day. Midori is trying to patch things up still, but he's still unable to be nice to her. He still feels too much guilt about what he's done. And as they're walking, he bumps back into the woman, and we get another amazing Junji Ito full-page spread. The art is crazy. It's iconic. Yeah. Turns out she hasn't been in prison. She's been getting tattoos every day. And she doesn't seem to have noticed until it's covered her entire body, and now she's just running around the crossroads begging for someone to tell her what to do. She can't take any kind of accountability or agency over her own life. At this point, Ryusuke snaps. He goes on a rant that I'm sure we've all wanted to go off on at some point, and he basically says, you're creating all these problems for yourself. Who has told you to do this? Why can't you try and at least internalize some of the help I'm trying to give you? Like, I have been trying and you're just ignoring me. But the woman reveals, as I'm sure we've all guessed, that she met with the boy in black, and that's why she's being this way. The boy in black does this really evil manipulative thing where he basically says, I'm not even going to talk to you until you have a bigger problem. And the woman just starts creating bigger problems for herself. The chapter ends when the woman walks away from the pair and then sets fire to herself. It's a very tragic ending. So that's chapter 2. I think it does a good job of building on chapter 1. It gives us some good information on how Ryusuke is doing in his crusade against the boy in black, and it also presents him with an opportunity to try again on the worst thing that ever happened to him. Granted, he does falter at the first hurdle, but eventually he comes around and does try to help this person. He puts aside his own issues and does the best he can. Alright, let's talk about chapter 3, Shadow. In this chapter, we get to analyze Ryusuke and the boy in black's Jungian shadow type relationship. They are foils of each other, they're very similar. The very start of this chapter calls attention to that, where Ryusuke is being bullied in school. He's being called a dead man because he just wanders around the crossroads like a ghost. He's getting blamed for what happened to Reishi, and other than Midori, no one's really his friend, and he doesn't even really want to talk to Midori because he's so guilty about what happened to her aunt. So yeah, sucks to be him, but he's having a break. He's spending some time with a friend from outside of town called Teshima, who's come to visit him for 3 days. Ryusuke actually tells Teshima pretty much everything. He just tells him the first 2 chapters, and Teshima says, hey, okay fine, I'll help you. Let's go give people some good advice and try take this guy out. Teshima is a really good friend for about 5 seconds until he sees the ghost of Reishi and immediately decides, okay, Ryusuke is actually the guy who is causing these problems, and I don't like him anymore. Ryusuke is able to talk Teshima down, but eventually the rumor spreads anyway, and people at his school start calling him the boy in black. He points out every time that he doesn't have pierced ears, so they can't be the same guy, but most people just don't buy it. That night, Ryusuke dreams about the boy in black and wakes up with thumbtacks in his ears, giving him the illusion of pierced ears. The next day, when he's out wandering the crossroads, he gets chased by a mob of fangirls and then jumped by 2 guys with a box cutter who are trying to kill him. He then goes to the police. Slight tangent here, but that's actually another point in favour of Ryusuke in my eyes. The police are useless here, like, what are they gonna do? But at the same time, he's acting realistically. One of my favourite moments in any horror movie ever is in the first Insidious movie, where when the family decide that the house is haunted, they just move. They don't stick around for no reason. They actively seek out a way to fix things. Ryusuke's doing the same thing here when he goes, okay, this is dangerous, my life is in danger, I'm gonna speak to the authorities, like, I'm not just gonna let people jump me. Headed home at the end of this really awful day, Ryusuke finds his room has black clothes in it and also a box cutter. At this point, he's at his lowest. He figures, okay, maybe I am this guy, subconsciously, or whatever. But if that's true, I can just end this now. And he picks up the box cutter and goes to use it on himself when he hears a voice coming from outside of his window. Turns out that Teshima was behind everything. He did all of this in an attempt to appease the spirit of Reishi, who is asking for Ryusuke. However, when he brings Ryusuke in front of her, she says that's not him. She doesn't even know who he is at this point. She's so utterly devoted to the boy in black, but because she doesn't know anything about the boy in black, she assumes he has to be someone she knows, like Ryusuke. She sees them as the same, but they're not. The chapter ends shortly after this with the ghost of Reishi vanishing into the fog and Teshima getting institutionalized. His psyche completely breaks. The most important takeaway of this chapter, I think, regarding Ryusuke is that he is more than aware that there are some similarities between him and the boy. He can be pushed to his complete breaking point by being made aware of them, but at the end, he learns and internalizes that they're not the same. He is a much better, fundamentally good person. All of his character growth coalesces in Chapter 4, Night of Screams. Ryusuke is depicted on this cover art as being this determined-looking figure clad in white, a beacon of hope in a sea of screaming souls lost in the fog. This chapter opens with Ryusuke's house looking like that one scene from Life of Brian, but he doesn't even live there anymore. He's living in a shack out in the outskirts of town. The only person who sees him anymore is Midori, because she's bringing him food, and it actually seems like they're reconciling. He's just still really hung up about the whole aunt thing. But it's here he decides he's just going to tell her. So Midori leaves, she needs to think about this, obviously, and she begins rationalizing, being like, well, it's not really his fault, he couldn't have known that would have happened, there's really lots more factors at play here, but I'm still mad, she has every right to be. But then the boy in black approaches her. Don't forgive him. You have to hate him your entire life. Midori falls under the spell and becomes incredibly horrible to Ryusuke. She starts feeding him live rats. She beats him with a stick. She says she hates him and will forever. Midori has a really interesting relationship with the boy in black. Most girls are compelled to love him, but she thinks it's the ghost of her unborn cousin. Whilst all of this is happening, the boy in black is getting way more daring with what he's up to. He collects over 100 girls in the same place and then uses them in a ritual of death that stains the fog red permanently. Shortly after this, one of the most tragic scenes in the entire story happens when Midori uses a box cutter on herself. It's really sad. It also shows some insight into the minds of the victims of the boy in black. She seemed to have been aware that she was under a curse, so the only way to break it is to cease to exist. She apologizes to Ryusuke in her final moments, saying that she doesn't hate him anymore, and it's just really sad. After this, Ryusuke decides he's just going to go fight the boy in black, like straight up. But there's a really interesting scene on the way there where he bumps into the guy who was responsible for the situations with Midori's aunt and the woman from chapter 2. And after the man vents about how difficult his life is because he keeps cheating on his wife, Ryusuke just walks past him. He ignores him. Instead of lashing out at him or fighting him or anything, he just leaves it be. I think at this point Ryusuke is just way too single-minded to really care about this guy. His main priority right now is just dealing with the immediate problem. I'm sure had it been any other time he would have listened to him, tried to talk things through, but at this point he's just done. We get another amazing piece of imagery here where Ryusuke, clad in white, box cutter in hand, wades through a sea of screaming and writhing dead souls to approach the man in black. However, he is unable to land a killing blow. He just gets swallowed up by the corpses and he's dead. He dies. But even in death, he is the GOAT. He's amazing. We find out here through a monologue given by someone not seen that ghosts are taking over the town. Things are getting really bad. The police can't do anything. But this boy in white has popped up and he will bring you happiness. He is cleansing the town of ghosts, and that's how the chapter ends. What follows is an epilogue that follows a new unnamed character. He arrives in the town to have his fortune told. We see here that everyone is trying to have their fortunes told, but no one wants to answer each other. No one wants to give each other information, good or bad. They just want their problem solved. They don't care about anyone else. We learn from people asking for fortunes that things are really bad in the town. The boy in black is sending ghosts of his victims to torment their families and laughing about it every night. Our new POV character is just depressed. He doesn't want to solve anyone else's problems. He's only come here to ask if anyone knows good ways to die. And when he stood there feeling really bad for himself, he is approached by the boy in white. It's Ryusuke. He's back, baby. But now he's got like a cool ghost design. He's got the 2003 Ninja Turtle eyes. He is looking good. And when the guy asks about happiness and how he can, end himself, the boy in white says, hey, you want to be happy? Go give 100 good crossroad fortunes. So he figures, sure, why not? He goes and does it. He gives good fortunes, and on the way he's joined by 2 other people. The The two other people saw the boy in white, completed 100 good fortunes, and they're just doing more now because it's nice to help other people. When this group come back at night, their nerve is tested, the streets are filled with ghosts, but they continue to give them good fortunes. And when it looks like this group of people are going to break, just at the stress of it all, the boy in white appears again, and he walks down this street of ghosts, telling all of them that they are loved. After the boy in white shows up, the boy in black disappears into a cloud of fog and is never seen again. And the depressed man walks home, now granted peace of mind after helping other people. And that's Lovesickness, the phenomenal Junji Ito story that features arguably his best protagonist. Ryusuke is a shining beacon of light in a genre that is so dark. Most of the best horror stories ever told are just societal fears reflected back at us through a horrific mirror, and Lovesickness is all about loneliness. We're all scared of loneliness. It's very scary. But what Ryusuke represents, both in his human form and as the boy in white, is that you can change that. You can be the person who goes out and says, "Hey, you look nice today," to a stranger, or a co-worker, or a family member. You can be the one who makes a family member's day by giving them a call. You can always be the reason someone has a good day. And this book's super relevant. It came out in 2021. It was written, or at least published, in a post-COVID world, and since then, talk of loneliness epidemics have only got more prevalent. But it provides a cheerful alternative to this dark future where everyone's sad and alone and worried about their love life, or what school they're going to get into, or how they're doing at their job. You can always be positive. But unlike most generic toxic positivity, just be happy all the time stories, Ryusuke gets sad. We see him at his lowest point. We see him go through some really horrible things, and it takes him a while to get back up from them. It's a very human response to sadness, and a very aspirational way to stay positive. And that's it from me. Go out and do something good today. You could make your good deed subscribing to the channel. That's so fucking cringe. Anyway, I'll be back to posting history content at some point soon. Cool, see you around.